inspection, sorry, takes place, not a deadline. The inspection takes place, starts on Monday, starting on the Carnage from 9 to 3. But I want to say good morning to those of you that's just joined us via television, those of you that have joined us via our website, www.gbn.gd, or via our Facebook and YouTube channel. We say good morning and welcome to the Mid-Morning Buzz. I'm Joseph Cadore. As intimated, but my first stop would be inside of the Department of Cooperatives, and I'll be speaking with a senior field officer, Mr. Claude Emmons. And this morning, our focus would be on requirements. Last week we spoke about initially, and to put it into perspective as I invite Mr. Emmons. So we started this conversation looking at what is cooperatives, then looking at how can you be part of the cooperative movements, what are the 7 principles that guides the movement. And today we'll be focusing for the next 15 minutes on how do you qualify to become part of the movement. Mr. Emmons, that would be the focus of the conversation. Thank you and welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. Let's put the conversation into perspective. As with any organization, any entity, there are rules that governs its participation, and we can assume reasonably that the cooperative movement is no different. I am interested. How do I become a part of the movement? Let's talk about some of those requirements.
Right, good. Now, before I go into the requirements, I would just like to give a brief historical background on cooperatives in Grenada.
Right.
All right? Okay. So it says here for more than 100 years, Grenadians have been involved in cooperatives. Cooperatives were and actually still remains a vital part of our economy right now, right? Now, the traditional susu and maroon that was practiced throughout our communities are based on cooperative principles. People helping people, okay? Now, in 1946, the first cooperative society was formed among civil servants, and we still have it today. We know it as the Ariza Credit Union, right? Now, back then, this society survived more or less on its own. There was no rules, there was no governing body, so they survived on their own. But in 1955, the Cooperative Societies Ordinance, which comprised of specific laws to govern all cooperatives, were established. And in 1957, the Department of Cooperatives was also established to administer the cooperative laws. Okay? Now, in 1995, the old laws under the Cooperative Society Ordinance was viewed as outdated and ineffective, so it was replaced then by the Cooperative Societies Act number 20 of 1996, and subsequently by the Cooperative Societies Act number 8 of 2011. So the Cooperative Society Act number 8 of 2011 is the current legislation used by the department to regulate the producer and service type cooperatives that we regulate right now. So all the rules would be actually come from the Cooperative Society Act number 8 of 2011. All right? Now, in order to be registered as a cooperative, first of all, you must have a group, a minimum of 10 persons. You must have 10 persons, which is at least 18 years of age, who is a Grenadian citizen or a resident or a citizen of another CARICOM member state. All right, so that's a broad inclusion that the Cooperative Act gives to persons wanting to form a cooperative group and to be registered. Okay.
Is there, while you added, is there any limitation to geographic location? I'm a Grenadian, but I reside out there in the diaspora. Is there any limitation to that?
Well, no. You're supposed to be a resident. You're supposed to be residing within, let's say, within the region. All right, because it also extends to CARICOM member states. Again, as I said. But um, ideally, when you do your bylaws, you put your specific bylaws, you can put limitations in your bylaw. So although the act gives like a broad inclusion, when you do your bylaw, right, you can put certain limitations.
Okay. So
Right.
there's a general bylaw that allows that you're guided by, but I'm getting the sense that each cooperative may have elements of it that is unique that may be unique to it.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we started. You must start with at least 10 with at least the fact that you're Grenadian, residing at least you were within the Caribbean region, and it must be at least 10,
Right.
at least 10 persons.
10, yeah. It could be 10 or more, but
10 or more.
it can be under 10.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Now from that core group of 10 persons, what you would do then is to select an interim board. All right, to spearhead the process, the registration process. All right, usually that would be 5 persons. It would comprise of a president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer, and another director. Okay. Now these key persons would be tasked with taking the cooperative forward and the registration, the whole registration process. They would administrate and spearhead that process. All right. Then you would choose a name for your cooperative. All right. The Cooperative Societies Act mandates that whatever name you choose, Cooperative Society Limited must form part of that name. Okay? So you would choose your name, and at that point, we advise that you contact the Department of Cooperatives. All right, you can reach us on 435-8779 or 8780. Why I say at this point that you should contact us, what we have done is to do a startup package, a cooperative startup package, model business plan, that would help you along the way, and a model work rule that will help you along the way in preparing yourself for registration. Okay?
Right.
So, good. You have a question?
No.
All right. No. So after you have done that, you would need viable. It's financially viable. It's a service or a product that is needed, all right, and could sustain the business. So you would then go ahead and conduct that needs analysis. And in that analysis, it would identify things like the objective of the cooperative, what you hope to achieve. You would identify things like the kind of equipment you need, whether you need buildings, whatever other materials that you need. Identify things like the premises, where the office, where the area of operation would be, or the registered office would be, and things like financial assistance. Okay? So that would be your needs analysis.
Let me ask you though, because I'm assuming it has to be quite a comprehensive and detailed business plan that is being asked.
Yes.
The cooperative is formed not for the base purpose of profit.
Correct.
That being said, though, would the cooperative are they required, let's say, to do revenue projections, let's say for a given period, as is required in many startup businesses?
Of course. Although the main emphasis on cooperative is not for profit, but you still need to be financially viable in order to survive, in order to produce the kind of services that your members might need, all right? And to fulfill some of the other cooperative principles that Mr. Grimes talked about last week, which is education and training. Those things cost money.
Right.
All right? You still need to make money. You need to be financially viable.
So while the base function is not necessarily for profitability, the cooperative is treated and you apply all the basic business principles that would eventually should allow you to churn out profits at the end.
to turn out a surplus. We call it surplus.
Surplus, yes. Surplus.
Yes.
Great.
All right. Yes, of course. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And we actually have a shining example on the island of a cooperative that is doing very well.
Which one?
Right? We don't call it names. We don't call it names.
One on the south of the island?
Yes, to the south of the island.
Okay, we will leave it there.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So yes. So to continue on the requirements, which you already touched on, you need to prepare a comprehensive business plan. All right. A comprehensive business plan would include things like the product or service to be provided, the organizational structure, the results of your market study, because you would have done, I said, the needs analysis.
Right.
Your financial requirements and your financing plan. All right. And also the amount of capital that you need to have to successfully undertake that whatever operation that you plan to to undertake. All right. Once you've done that, you then go into preparing your bylaws. Okay, and all of those things would be the interim board would have to be instrumental in those process. All right. But you have to prepare your bylaws. Bylaws will be will be done by the general membership. All right, because it would be a constitution. It would be what governs the cooperative, and it would spell out things like qualification for membership, membership fee, things like a financial year, what the purpose of the cooperative is, the name and the postal address of the cooperative, things like disputes, how do you deal with disputes and things like that. All right, so your bylaws is very important. It's going to help to manage the cooperative for better and to keep the group gelling, through years, because difficulties are going to come. Anytime you put a group of people together,
yes,
difficulties would come, and there might be disputes between members. So you have to prepare some very good bylaws. You have to think forward how you're going to deal with those disputes, how you're going to deal with future expansion. All those things would be included in the bylaws.
So that bylaw would be a sound, foolproof, legal document.
Legal and binding document.
It's a legal and binding document. So it's not one, as I say, a vacuum thing you come together and just put. Let me ask you, in putting the bylaws together, what role does the cooperatives play, the body play in, because of course that cooperative must form part, its bylaws must conform to whatever existing laws that there is by the cooperatives department. What role do you play as field officers and other individuals in ensuring that they fall in line? And if they don't, let's say there's an element of the bylaw, their bylaw, that they hold fast to as the overarching body that manages it. What do? Can you discipline them, say, well, listen, you don't conform, X, Y, and Z? Let's talk about that.
You mean if the bylaw itself doesn't conform to the Cooperative Societies Act?
Yes.
Okay.
How do you treat
first of all, yes. First of all, let me say that the Grenada Cooperative League is tasked by the Cooperative Societies Act number 8 of 2011 to assist cooperatives in the registration process in terms of training and helping to prepare by things like bylaws and business plan and so on. So once a cooperative comes to the department, a prospective cooperative rather, comes to the department and shows interest, we usually would get the league involved, right? And help to train them and help them to create the bylaws. So the thing is, if your bylaw doesn't conform to the Cooperative Societies Act, you would not be registered, right?
Right.
You would not be registered in the first place. So the inclusion of the league is very important to guide. And although the bylaws are coming from the members, the prospective members and the cooperative, but the league is instrumental, is guiding them and letting them know, okay, this bylaw doesn't line up with the act, so you're going to have to change it, and you might have to tweak it a bit so that it lines up.
And I'm assuming that there's a continuous working relationship, symbiotic relationship between the cooperative, the league, and the cooperative itself to make sure that is a smooth running and everything conforms. This team has okay. Let's talk about that.
Yes.
We're keeping our eyes on the clock. 17 minutes gone past the hour in case you were just joining us. My guest at the time is Mr. Claude Evans, and he's a senior field officer in the Department of Cooperatives. And we're going through, as it is, the requirements for the formation of cooperatives. And we just about running through the fact that, one of the elements is that of an extensive financial plan. Then, of course, there's the issue of how do you raise capital, and there's also the issues of registration fees and all of that. Take us through that because our time is running out.
Okay. Well, raising capital is very important. The first way that you raise capital is that people have to purchase shares to become members, right? That's the first way to raise capital. Now, it depends on the scope of the operation. That may not be enough. So some people usually do fundraising activities. You can also go to lending agencies and donor agencies. People give a lot of grants to cooperatives and a lot of loans. So you can go to the banks and loan the credit unions, which are another form of cooperative, and try to secure finance so you can realize whatever you have in your business plan. Okay, so that's the way you raise capital. Education and training, again, very important because people need to know what they're getting into, right? And again, I said we usually get the league to come in, to train and to educate on the cooperative principles and what is expected and what is required and what are your rights and as a member of a cooperative. Also very important, you must have a registered office or a physical location, all right, where you can, a base, that's a biggie, that's a big one, all right? You must have a physical location where people can come and know that is where this cooperative is located, and that actually is mandated in the Cooperative Societies Act.
Right.
All right. So after you have satisfied all these requirements, then you can fill in the application. We have a prescribed application form. You fill in the application. It must be signed by at least 1/3 of the members, right? And then you pay the prescribed application fee at the Treasury. It's $125, right? Application fee, and you send that into the Department of Cooperative. The receipt from the Treasury, along with the application form, 3 copies of the bylaws,
right,
and the business plan. All right, and the rest is then left up to the registrar.
That $120 sounds archaic as those bones that were found down in the True Blue area over the weekend. $120 in this month? Like, seriously? Well,
yeah, $125 for the application. For the yes, to be registered, it's just $125.
As you said, just $125. Well, man, that is interesting. 20 minutes gone past the hour. We've run through that, Claude. Again, just put in context with the importance. But you did highlight, of course, that cooperatives, they have been around for quite a while, but let's take the last minute and so just to put in context, given the difficult financial times and economic times we live in, how important a role that cooperatives can play in ensuring our survivability and the growth of our economy. 1 minute.
Yes. So I think right now is a perfect time for cooperatives to, for people to get involved in cooperatives to deal with the financial hardships that they have found themselves in because of COVID. There's an old adage that says many hands make work light, right? And what you may not be able to accomplish by yourself, if you come together as a group, right, it's going to be easier to accomplish it. And if you look at traditionally, we have been a kind of community-oriented nation traditionally, and we have gotten through some very difficult times in the past. I think if we could apply that same principle today, we should be able to ride out this difficult time, and I think cooperative is the perfect example to take us forward.
Now is the time indeed that we need to pull our resources more and be collective in our thoughts on what we do. Thank you, sir.
Correct.
Claude Evans, Senior Field Officer in the Department of Cooperatives. This series will continue next week. Wishing you all the best to you and your team, sir.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
22 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. It's the sound of Classic 105.5, 105.9, coupled with GBN's television, channel 7 and 11, channel 23 and cable. We say hello to those of you that's on Facebook, all of us viewing us via the World Wide Web. When we return, we have two wonderful ladies waiting in the wing. We continue. We'll be talking to Natasha Joseph from inside of the GDB and Gennil Reuben as we continue the conversation looking at the G Crew project as it is, and how can you get financing, what is available, how as we build resistance and capacity. 23 minutes past the hour, we take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we continue with the Mid-Morning Buzz. GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11. K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere.
Let's Cook Grenada, a practical culinary guide to local cuisine. Learn new ways to prepare your favorite foods, or try different menus from various locations across the island. Let's Cook, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11, GBN's Facebook page, and GBN's YouTube channel. If you miss it, catch the repeat Thursdays at 10 a.m. and Sundays at 3:30 p.m.
Turn up. There Jah goes again. He took me to a higher level, higher. Already Father blessing me, Already Father.
The world is brighter. I'm so much lighter since you came into my life, Lord. I am not the same.
Blessings flowing over here like a fountain. Don't make nobody trick you, no. And
minutes gone past the hour in the morning time, and welcome back to our viewers. As I did intimate to you, my guests, moving on to my next two guests this morning, as we continue with the conversation as it relates to last week we started it, and this is all part of an initiative by the Grenada Development Bank. My two wonderful guests this morning, and they're waiting in the wings. They are Natasha Joseph, and she's a business support and development officer within the Grenada Development Bank, And there's Gennil Reuben, and she's a communications specialist attached to Grenada Climate Change Resilience Water Project, G Cruise. This morning, ladies, welcome to the program. It has been a while. You guys have managed to keep away from me for different reasons, which I wouldn't get into on national TV and radio. But good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Joseph, and thanks for having us here this morning to you and your viewers, listeners. It's good to be here this morning.
Good morning, Joseph, and thank you for having us.
Gennil, I thought you left to go get something done. What happened?
Well, in the interest of time, I wouldn't have time to get it done.
I don't want to expose you on national TV.
No, don't do that. Ladies, we have a good rapport going, so let's keep that.
I was telling Chris last week, and I always say, it's a conversation that isn't a traditionally sexy one. We hear about the terms resilience, capacity building. We hear about those terms, and very often it is not easy for us to put it in context of how it makes sense to us and why, right? And under the whole construct of conservation and building capacity comes the need for water. And very often we always assume that water is one of those resources that we sleep and wake up and it is always going to be there. Now, there is, of course, ladies, and I want to start off with you, Gennil, because you are the communications officer. Climate change resilience water sector in Grenada, and the standard is approximately $135 million has been pumped into that. And the project is jointly financed by the Green Climate Fund, that's GCF, and the German Federal Ministry for the Environment. And over 6 years, the government, of course, of Grenada, the Grenada Development Bank, and the National Water and Sewage Authority, in partnership with the German corporation, that's GIZ, will implement the project in a 5-stage capacity. Let's talk about it. Let's simplify it. What is this project? How does it benefit you and I at the end of the day? And then we can head over to Natasha, because the funds that's invested into that project, they are the ones that controls the big bucks. You get to talk about it. Natasha gets to say who gets it, who spends the money. But we need to find out. Tell us about the project.
Okay, Joseph, good morning to you and to your listeners and viewers. Thank you again for having us. The Climate Resilient Water Sector in Grenada project, shortened form G-Cruise. That's what we will be talking about today. So anytime you hear the name G-Cruise, you know we're talking about the Climate Resilient Water Sector in Grenada project. It is a 6-year project which has as its main objective to increase the systemic climate resilience in Grenada's water sector. And how would we achieve that? We are going to achieve that by applying a multi-level approach towards resilience, both at the level of water governance, households, businesses, and the water supply system. The project, as you mentioned before, it is jointly financed by the Green Climate Fund, GCF, and the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, BMU, under the International Climate Initiative, ICI, and the Government of Grenada. Over the next 6 years, the Government of Grenada, the Grenada Development Bank, GDB, and the National Water and Sewage Authority, NWASA, in partnership with the German Development Corporation, GIZ, will implement the project's 5 components. What do we want? We need each one of you. You, Joseph, your listeners, your viewers, we need everyone to play a part in the conservation of water. We need all hands on deck towards achieving our project's end goal. Everyone can help and contribute to water savings. We in G-Cruise, we need the contributions from the hotels, the farmers, the households, population on a whole. In other words, everyone needs to come on board with us. We know climate change, for instance, it is impacting us. And we're seeing it through longer drought periods and higher temperatures, and therefore we have to adapt. We are consuming too much water for our supply, and thus we need to think water wisely.
Let me ask you, and therein lies the challenge, because when there are things that we see around us, We grew up in a period where we talk about there's less rainfall. The farmers talk about it. But the challenge is that very often the man on the ground recognizes it, but doesn't know how to deal with it. So I recognize I had a ravine at the back of my house when I was a little boy, but I'm all grown now. Where is it? I used to go catch little mullets there, but that doesn't happen. But the challenge is that very often we seem to be divided when it comes to the stakeholders, the movers and shakers. There is varied opinions. How do we break past that to get everybody, the average man, and one of the components, the first component speaks to the whole issue of governance, because very often we seem to think that water is an all-encompassing, a bond with it, a seed here, it's going to be here forever. But Gennil, that's not the truth, is it?
So what I can tell you, underneath 5 components, those issues will be addressed. So component 1, like you mentioned, speaks to Grenada's water sector governance. And component 2 speaks to Grenada's water users. And this is where we are going to speak about promotion and awareness of the project. So for instance, component 2, Grenada water users, under one activity under that component is the Challenge Fund for Tourism and Challenge Fund for Agriculture. And this is where I would hand over to Natasha Joseph of the GDB to further explain what the Challenge Fund for Tourism is all about and give us a more in-depth analysis as to what is going to be happening and how we can tap into some of the concerns that the farmers and others have.
So, Lady Joseph, we have agreed that there is a problem. We've identified what the problem is. Climate change, it has come to affect every facet of our lives. And as we continue to address the issue of survivability, rebuilding resilience, the question is, how do we ensure for the next 20 years that, of course, we have good water to eat, to drink, and the agriculture sector is alive and well? That takes money. It's not just, let's just change it overnight. A lot of money involved that has to be managed. Let's talk about how individuals, so let's start with me. I've recognized the need. I've identified a project. I come to GDB and I'm saying, this is where I'm at. Let's start that conversation, Ms. Joseph. How do I get funded for my project?
So what the project seeks to address here is really the 2 major users of water in terms of sectors within Grenada. So the Challenge Fund, which the GDB would manage, that's 2.1, that section of the project, seeks to address and promote water efficient solutions for agriculture and for tourism. Yeah, so it's going to use grants provided by the Green Climate Fund to facilitate water audits, solution design, implementation, to incentivize significant private sector co-finance really for the purchase of water efficient solutions. Because what has been recognized, apart from householders, the biggest consumers of water are the tourism and agricultural sectors, right? So the project seeks to address this by providing this grant financing for those 2 sectors to build resilience in their water usage. So it's divided into two real streams within there. There's a challenge fund for tourism and a corresponding challenge fund for agriculture. We're actually in the process right now of actively working through the challenge fund for tourism. The water auditor has been contracted. Actually, they had a meeting this morning that should be ongoing at the moment in terms of how we progress through the actual implementation stage. Yeah, we've had interest from a lot of the hoteliers because that's where we're going to start. We're starting with the hotels because we recognize that in this COVID time, while most of them are low on occupancy, this is a good time for them to address some of those initiatives, yeah, to do some of those interventions into their facilities. So we're starting with tourism. And we actually had a meeting yesterday with interested hotel owners in terms of how we go through the process. So that bit is active. And it looks to address water consumption within the hotels in terms of bathroom retrofits. So, the toilets, those leaky faucets in our showers, the toilets. And it also looks at rainwater harvesting and, where possible, rainwater recycling. So the auditors would go into the facility, do a full audit of their water consumption, and make recommendations of interventions that they think would address the issues that they have. So that's how that's going to work.
There are those who would always ask the question about accessibility to the fund. You say it's available to the tourism sector. Is there any discrimination as to what level of the sector you are, whether or not you, let's say you do your small guest house, your major hotelier? Is there any discrimination, or is it a fund that is open and available to everyone once you meet the necessary criteria?
The only criteria we have is that the facility must be registered with the GTA. So it caters for guest houses in terms of accommodation sector, right through to large hotels. So there's no discrimination in terms of who can benefit.
What sort of activity have you seen in the fund in terms of what has been disbursed, the interest level? I know you say there's been ongoing conversation, but how practical can we get to say, yes, I mean, we've had, or can we give examples, if ever, once it's okay?
We're actually just starting up, so we're in the startup phase of the project. The audits are due to commence within the next 2 weeks. Those are going to start in terms of the actual physical, going into the property, seeing what the issues are, whether they have leakages, what's the consumption, whether it's optimal, the fixtures and fittings that they have within their bathrooms, etc. So that process is going to start within the next 2 weeks. So we haven't yet had disbursements.
Okay.
I should say.
As part of that, does it in any way, the auditing, does it seek to ensure, because very often when you find entities, businesses, when they make upgrades and expansions, very often a lot of the expense, sometimes the expenses, of course, if I upgrade my facility, the next thing is, okay, some of those costs is passed on to the end user or the visitors, which may not always be a good thing for the sector.
Right.
As part of your assessment, do the bank seeks to ensure that doesn't happen at the end of the day?
Well, the project, as it stands right now, gives an 80% grant. So because of the structure of the project and the significance of the grant financing in terms of the component that they have, we don't think that should translate into any increase in rates. Because literally they're only required to co-finance 20% of the project.
So there is the tourism sector, and there's also the agriculture sector.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Qualification. Is there any variables between the two, compare and contrast as to what is given for the agriculture sector as to compare what's given for the tourism? Given that if you ask me, you cannot separate them.
Well, the thing about this, the interventions would be different. Because when you're looking at the needs of the two sectors, they vary. For agriculture, you would have things like irrigation systems, in terms of drip irrigation. You would have things like, we even looking at shade houses and hydroponics. So any intervention and any solution really that seeks to save and conserve in terms of water usage. So the interventions are different in terms of what's proposed for them, but there's a recognition, just the same, that they're a significant user of water.
I was asking more in the context because very often a lot of people do not see the direct correlation between tourism and agriculture.
Right.
If agriculture blossoms, then by fact, because literally it is two industries that is interrelated. So I'm just wondering whether or not the project in itself looks at it in its entirety to ensure that there is a balance at the end of the day. Because to me, the idea of, let's say, investing in agriculture should not just be for the sake of we just invested, but it has to be on the basis that we have a thriving agriculture sector. We need to feed our visitors. We need to feed our people here at home. So I'm trying to figure how all-encompassing it is in terms of the projections and investments that's made in it. Or is it that they ask, I want this, and you just say, okay, fine, you qualify, here's the money, go do whatever you want?
When it comes to agriculture, those assessments are going to be conducted in conjunction with the Ministry of Agriculture in terms of the extension officers and their support. So in terms of the needs and the requirements, the entire value chain, as you mentioned, is being taken care of here. This project is looking at their water needs, Yeah, but there are other projects that are ongoing that looks at other elements of the chain in terms of sustainability right through to the end. Yeah. But for this particular project, we're focusing on the water needs because, as you know, I mean, water and usage as it relates, especially to agriculture, is a significant issue when we come to our extended dry periods. Yeah. And so conserving and also putting solutions in place to minimize the usage is critical as part of this project. Yeah, but there are other projects like Agricom, like SIAP, that looks at other elements of the value chain.
The Ministry of Agriculture is going to manage and the rollout in terms of how the agriculture sector is treated. Is the Ministry of Tourism, the GTA, do they adopt the same sort of relationship with the tourism sector in terms of who's getting involved? Because you said all that's needed is for them to qualify is to be approved by the GTA. But is the GTA...
that's for tourism.
For tourism.
For agriculture, they have to be registered farmers.
Right, but for tourism, does the GTA and the Ministry of Tourism, do they get actively involved at the end of the day?
Oh yes, they're part of the management team for G-Cruise just the same. They're part of the project in terms of their key stakeholders. As I mentioned, as it relates to tourism, they're also part of the audit process. So the GTA, in conjunction with the water experts, would be the ones doing the audits on the properties, on the facilities. When it comes to agriculture, what happens then is that the water auditor will then work with the Ministry of Tourism. Yeah, being the manager really for that particular process. So in both instances, the ministries are involved and are critical stakeholders to the entire process.
And I'm asking you those questions for specific reasons because very often you hear the challenge that, there's a project that is a fund that is set up,
right.
Funds get disbursed is there that is available, and then you hear 2 years pass, funds cannot be the fund is empty. And then you can't say where it went. I mean, at least I'm happy to know in this case that there's a strict management structure that allows to determine what happens, when, and how. I'll leave you there for now. I almost said Natty. My tongue almost slipped.
That's fine.
That's why I paused. I want to go back because we're running out of time, though. And this is a conversation I know we're rushing it today, but we want to be able to take our time. But let me go back to Gennil. Lady Reuben.
Yes, Mr. Joseph.
So major components. One looks at tourism, the tourism sector. The other looks at the
agriculture.
Major activities on
the component.
Right.
On the component.
Let me ask you, an essential component to the success of this project is that of communication.
Yes.
How do you get the message out to the right people at the right time where they are? As a communication specialist, I know it, and don't tell me this is all part of it because I know that. Don't even give me that as a response. Talk to me about a comprehensive communication plan that is in place so that people on the ground, because the idea is that you want to be able to reach people on the ground to be able to understand that, listen, climate change is real. Not just Ms. Joseph has a part to play, neither just you, but we all collectively have a role to play in ensuring its overall success. Talk to me about that plan.
Yes, Joseph, and it starts today with you and what we are doing right here. This interview, letting the public know about the G-Cruise project. And we will be having many other interviews with yourself or GBN and other television and radio and newspaper stations. However, we are currently putting our communication plan together because in light of COVID-19, you have to now sort of rethink the activities that you are doing and making sure that you keep in line with the guidelines that would be in place. But we need everyone on board. Everyone has a part to play in conservation. So under awareness, education, and outreach, the first thing we'll be starting with would be a CAP survey. So if you get a text message in the coming weeks and months asking you to participate in a survey, we are encouraging each one of you, Don't click it away. Don't delete it. Take some time. Answer the question. We want to know our water users better, and we want to learn from them. So please respond to the questionnaire. We'd also be having various advertisements out on the television and radio, giving persons an idea of what the G-Cruise project is about. We'll be reaching out to the students' involvement in activities such as photography, art, and essay competitions, households, photography competitions, and others, and the general awareness, like I mentioned, the media campaigns, the interviews, population sensitization, radio awareness, exhibitions, checking out the various partner pages, their social media pages, and you'll be seeing a lot of activities coming up on the G-Cruise project. What the key message we want to let the general public know: we need to remember water is essential to our survival, and we need to conserve and use it wisely. Reduce wasting water. If you have a leaky pipe, please turn it off when you're leaving home during the day, and you get a plumber to look at that leaky pipe. When you're washing the wares, please turn it off when you're soaping, and when you finish soap the wares, then you can open it again to rinse it. When you're having a shower, don't let the shower run for the entire process. Turn it off, soap, and then open again to rinse. If you find or see leaky pipes within the street, call Nawasa and let them know, I see a leaky pipe in area X, and I've been seeing it there for the last 2-3 days. We want everybody to spread the word around about the G-Cruise project. We want everybody to be patient when Nawasa is going to implement the construction works. We know it will result in some delays in the morning or during the evening, but please exercise a little patience, and if you have to leave home a little bit earlier, please do so, and support us in the implementation of this project. The Challenge Fund, as Ms. Joseph mentioned, we want the hotels. Each hotel tell each other, tell one another. You didn't hear about, I heard about the G-Cruise project, you might not have heard about it. Call up the other hotelier, tell them about it. The farmers, each one tell one, and that is how we want to spread the message of the climate resilient water sector in Grenada project, G-Cruise. So look out for our ads, look out for our, both on television, radio, newspaper, as well as on the different social media platforms of our partners.
Persons, Gennil, that's Ms. Reuben, that's willing to reach you. I'm assuming you have an extensive communication team. You use traditional lines, social media. Let's talk to us about the lines of communication.
Yes, so if you need me, you can follow us on the Grenada's Facebook page, and that's where you will be seeing some of our information going out. You can reach me via cell 417-7631. The Grenada Development Bank also have their Facebook pages that persons can reach out to. Nawasa, you'll be seeing information upon Nawasa as well, so you can reach any one of us.
Ms. Joseph?
Yes, sir.
I'm a young hotelier. I qualified because I'm approved by the GTA. I need money. I have a major project. How do I reach you? And let me ask you at the end of the day, how fluid, how smooth a process is it that once I qualify, can I assume the turnaround time before we run? So at least we can satisfy the mind of some curious, small, hotelier that is out there.
Okay. The process is, as I said before, we start with the audit. Even out of the gate, we've had 22 properties expressing interest, right? So they're literally in the first round for audits.
Right.
Yeah. The process itself would be seamless in terms of once the audit is done, then the recommendations are made by the auditor. Yeah. The equipment is procured and installed. Then the installation process or the installation work is certified by the auditor as being as per the recommendations that were made, and then the grant is issued. Yeah. So we're hoping that the process is seamless. As we said to them yesterday in the meeting that we had, we welcome feedback. Yeah. So we welcome their comments, their suggestions of areas that we can improve as we work through the process.
Natasha Joseph, Business Support and Development Officer inside of the GDB, managing the Challenge Fund. Listen, Grenada, this is an all-encompassing project, as you've heard from Ms. Reuben. It's about the whole question of survivability, building resilience. How do we prepare today for tomorrow? And that's really and truly the question that is involved. I think each and every one of us need, of course, to play our part. Years ago, we heard about tourism, that tourism is everybody's business. The truth is right now, tourism, as it's been coupled with agriculture, is our business, and we all have our part to play. Thank you, Natasha Joseph. Thank you, of course, to yourself and the rest of the team inside of GDB. Thank you, Lady Reuben, and the rest of the team inside of J. Cruz. I'm hoping that this is the start, and I know it is the start of what is going to be a continuous conversation that will take us well into the immediate and the extended future. Ladies, you're off the hot seat.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, guys. It is 10 minutes on to the hour. 10 minutes on to the hour of 12 o'clock. We want to say thanks to those of you that joined us via the television feed, reminding you that you too, you find ways, ask yourself whether it's through your parliamentary rep, non-governmental organization, through your churches, find out how we can be a part of this conversation, that when it comes to adaptation and building resilience as we deal and address this issue of climate change. And climate change, the reality is that it has come to affect every facet of our lives, and we all need to get involved. Reminding you, for those of you that's in radio, at the top of the hour is going to be the midday edition, a production of our news and current affairs department. Peace and love. JC loves you. I leave you, of course, those on television, you go back to your regular programming. Folks on radio, the midday edition comes up at the top of the hour. I'm out of here for now. God bless.